I am back for another video, but I'm going to do something a little different this time. It's not really related to homeschooling, but I wanted to talk about parenting books. And I have 5 children, and so I have read all the parenting books. Especially when my kids were younger, it was like I couldn't get enough parenting books because I was struggling, and I had all these little kids that were going crazy and having tantrums, and like going to the grocery store was a nightmare, and so I would just absorb all this information. And back then my goal was to have perfect children, and I felt like if my kids were perfect, people would look at them and look at me and think like that I'm winning at life, so performance was a huge thing for me. And I have to say that after having so many kids, at some point I kind of gave up on that perfect thing, because let's face it, perfection is a joke. It's not real. But that was like one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I replaced perfection with connection. And so my goal now is to love my kids, to know my kids, to just get to know them in a way that I know what matters to them and they know what matters to me. And I set firm boundaries. We have rules in our house, all of that. But it comes from a place where I'm just so focused on who they're going to become. I don't care if they're perfect in the moment. My kids are in process. And in our house, it's kind of a saying, like, you have permission to be human. Like, if your sister steals your toy and you're having a bad day and that wasn't cool, it's okay to freak out for a minute, because that hurts. That's not fair. And so instead of, I guess, I maybe used to like put that kid in timeout, like, we don't scream in this house. But now there's lots of moments where it's just me and said tantruming kid just having a conversation, and then talking about like, hey, how can we develop positive life skills where the next time this happens, I don't throw myself on the floor and scream. So I'm definitely not the perfect parent either. And that is, that's actually a gift, because as I'm teaching my children how to grow in process, I'm growing in process. I'm very honest about my process with my kids. I ask forgiveness for my kids. I apologize sometimes, So that's just kind of my preface, is I've read lots of parenting books. I don't feel like a lot helped me. That whole thing, my whole spiel I just had, that was just kind of came out of life. Like, life kind of taught me that, and I'm so grateful. But a couple of weeks ago, I heard a podcast that was just awesome, and it was Rebel Parenting, which is by Ryan and I think her name's Laura Dobson. So it's James Dobson's son. So Rebel Parenting is a really cool podcast, and they had Dr. Thomas Lickona on, and they were interviewing him, and he was talking about one of his books that he'd written. And man, it just blew me away. I went right to Amazon and bought the book. And then, underneath it, it's like, people who bought this book. So I bought his other book too. So these are 2 books, Character Matters, How to Raise Kind Kids. How to Raise Kind Kids was the first that I read, and it blew me away. It's the best parenting book I have ever read. And I'm talking out of hundreds of parenting books in the last 10 years of parenting. I mean, well, maybe not hundreds, but you know what I'm saying, 50. I have read lots of parenting books, lots of blogs, all of that fun stuff. I've taken classes and, whatever. This was an amazing book. I feel like every parent and teacher needs this book. So it's by Dr. Thomas Lickona, How to Raise Kind Kids. And kind of the heart of the book was that media things, the things that our culture kind of like revolves around, like, those things do not make us happy. And he shares statistic after statistic after statistic of kids that are interviewed and teenagers that are interviewed, and they have everything. They have cell phones, they have all the toys, their parents go on vacations, whatever, but they're not happy. And one of the most sobering statistics for me was on teenagers, how many teenagers experience anxiety and depression, and how that's like skyrocketed even in the last 5 years. And he talks about how he believes it's related to media, and how like we're trying to get something there, but it's not real. And ultimately, what it comes down to is what makes us happy is doing things for other people. Serving other people is what makes us feel fulfilled. And I just love that, because it's not like doing kind things for other people isn't just about making them happy. It also does something in our hearts, and it shifts something inside of us. And so let's see what I wanted to talk about. He talks about contributing to society in a positive way. And he talks about how the way to do this is to create a family culture of kindness. Like if you want kind children, you have to have a family culture where you value kindness and where you celebrate it and where you prioritize it. And I love that, because it was not just about how I'm responding to my kids. It was also like, how am I modeling this to them? Like, it was more than a parenting book. It was kind of like a, I want to say self-help, self-improvement. It was self-improvement. Like, the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, how am I teaching my kids to give? How am I teaching them to control their anger? How am I teaching them to use wisdom? How am I teaching them, whatever, to what justice looks like? Or, it was just all these things. It was not like, it just put the ball back in my court. And I love that. It made me ask a lot of questions, and I feel like that's a really good thing. And I hadn't been stretched like that in a long time. So let's see, he also talked about discipline, like how to discipline in a way that builds character. Like, character was a huge topic in this. He talked about how important responsibility is. And what I loved about this book is it's not like, he's not just like, raise responsible kids, do it. He uses so many statistics and so many like studies that people have done. Like, okay, these children had chores growing up, and 10 years later, they were more likely to be successful in life, or they were more likely to not go into debt, or whatever. He uses like statistics that show you like, okay, I can't argue with this. Like, this is a real thing. And one of the things, even responsibility, he talked about just teaching kids to contribute to family life and not even paying them from chores. Like, we're in a family, we work together. So he also talks about like family culture and what that looks like. If that's the number one way to teach children kindness, how do you build a family culture that prioritizes kindness? And one of the main things he discusses is how to have like a family meeting, and how to make your dinner times or your times in the car just like meaningful, where you have good conversations. He has like over 100 open-ended questions to ask your children. I don't know if I can find that part right off, but anyway, let's see. What do you wish you were better at? What do you want to learn in the next year? If your house was on fire, what would you grab on your way out? So anyway, I mean, it's just like page after page of questions to ask your kids around the dinner table or in the car, just to have a conversation and develop that connection, which I already had a value for, but I feel like this book gave me, it showed me why I care about it, but also it stretched me to like, okay, this is like the gold in parenting, like, just knowing your kids and opening dialogue with them so they can feel free to talk to you. Another thing that he talked about is lots of resources, which I'm going to share some of the resources as well. But he talked about the Giraffe Hero Project, which is a website that is all about noticing people, ordinary people, who started foundations or had an idea that was about kindness and about selflessness, and then how they just like ran with it and made a difference. And so he talks about the value of like telling stories like that to your kids, just to tell them like, look, this is an ordinary person and they changed the world. They did this crazy thing that meant something to somebody else. And so that was really really awesome. I love that. He talked about rewarding kindness, and so out of that I made a cult being kind. Look, this is just like a piece of computer paper that I wrote my children's names down on, and they get a star every time they're kind, and it's like unsolicited kindness, so it's like, if I see them doing something kind that nobody asked them to do, then they get a star. And when they get 15 stars, they get to choose something nice to do with mommy and daddy. And it was awesome. Another thing that this book inspired me to do was create rules. This is our family rules. Like, we had rules in the house, but I hadn't really typed them up and like put them where we could see them. And so this is like rules and consequences. And when I started making this, I was like, how do you even make family rules? Like, I Googled it. I was like, I don't know what our rules should be. It was kind of tricky because I wanted to do it right, and then I didn't know how to do it right. I'm not even sure there is a right way because it's different for every family. But ultimately, our rules were respect everyone. Okay, it also includes respecting other people's belongings. No bickering or complaining or whining. That includes being positive because we don't like negativity around here. Respect our home, which means no jumping on the furniture and running up and down the hallways and all that kind of stuff. If you get something out, put it away. There's like little bullets, under each point. Be honest. If you messed up, take responsibility, make it right. Don't tell lies. Do not hurt another person, which is very important. No aggression in the house. And then next to it, the rules, there's the consequences. And that took me like a day to type up, but it's been so great because now when a rule gets broken, I just tell the kids, like, go to the fridge, go see what your consequence is, because the rules hold them accountable. I mean, it's not like I'm the bad guy in every situation. I'm like, go see the rules, like, you know what they are. So that's been awesome. And then I also came up with a family mission statement, which I shared. It's like all crumbled already because we've been trying to recite it before we do homeschool. But it says, our mission is to love. Our purpose is to change the world. We are strong in God. We are faithful in the little things. We believe the best about others. We learn from our mistakes. We never give up. Our God is good. Our family is amazing. And the best is yet to come. So that is our family mission statement that we've been reciting together. And all of that came out of this book and his recommendations for how to build a family culture around kindness. And the next book is Character Matters, and I'm about halfway through this book, and it's a lot of the same information, but what I liked about this one is he goes through the character traits and what they are and how to develop them in your children. It's just a much more focused, like this has a chapter on character. This is like a whole book on character, and about, not quite a half, but maybe a third of it is for teachers, and so it's for like how to cultivate character in a classroom and character education. And if you read about this author, let's see, I don't see. He basically started a program to get character education in schools. So there's that. Okay, the next thing, these are 2 resources that he discussed that I went ahead and bought, and I'm really glad that I did. So this is called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And I just got on Amazon. I think it was like almost $10. It's been around a long time, but I'd never heard of it before. And basically the premise is that everyone in the whole world carries around a bucket. Like we all have an invisible bucket, and when our bucket is full, we're happy. And when our bucket is empty, we're not happy. And so it talks about how do we fill a bucket? Like how do we fill our bucket? How do we fill another person's bucket? And it's by being kind, by saying like, I like your shirt, or it's nice seeing you today, or I'm really happy that you helped me do the dishes, or whatever. So when you compliment somebody or you say something nice to them, it helps to fill their bucket. And it also fills your bucket at the same time. Kind of like I was talking about kindness. It's like the double-sided coin. It's good for you and it's good for the other person. And it also talks about like bucket dipping. And if you dip out of somebody's bucket, you know, it's by like ignoring them or saying something cruel. It's like you actually take some of their happiness away. And so this book has a website where there's just so many free resources, and I've already been looking into it because I'm going to do like a whole unit with this book whenever we get around to doing it. This other book is really cool. It is called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. This is much more like sober. Like this is the thing nobody wants to talk about as a parent, and it's how easy it is for children to access pornography in our world. And so there's a whole chapter in the How to Raise Kind Kids about how perverse our culture is and how early children are getting access to things that they shouldn't. And how do we teach our kids what pornography is, even at a young age, and have like open dialogue about it. And so this book, I don't know if you could see the tagline, but it says Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids. And it is a story of a mom talking to her son and telling him what bad pictures are. And she's referring to pornography. And she goes on to talk about our brain, like how we think, you know, we have right brain and left brain and how that works, and how our thinking brain keeps us safe and our feeling brain like wants us to feel good. And one example she used in the book is talking about like, imagine an ice cream truck comes up to your house and you're like, I want ice cream now. And you go to run across the street, but your thinking brain's like, oh no, don't run in front of a car. Like you need to walk by the road, or you need to have an adult with you. And she talks about how your feeling brain and your thinking brain can actually work together, not be just feeling, and how like pornography kind of tricks your brain into having that release, like an addiction. And this book also talks about what addiction is. It talks about alcohol and drugs and all of that, and it goes into talk about what pornography is addiction, and then how to use your thinking brain to interrupt your feeling brain when porn is accessed. And so there's actually like a plan in the back that you're supposed to teach your kids. Let's see, my thinking brain's can-do plan. Close my eyes, always tell a trusted adult, name it when I see it, distract myself with something different, and order my thinking brain to be the boss. So whenever they see pornography, they're supposed to call it out, be like, that's pornography. Like, say it out loud. Don't let it be a secret. Close the computer or book or whatever they saw, and then basically have the thought, like, this is bad, instead of experiencing anything positive from it. Like, the thinking brain interrupts that process and say, this is bad, this is wrong, I don't want to do this. And so I'm really glad that I got this book, because my kids haven't accessed anything, and I feel like things are pretty safe because we keep a track on what they watch on YouTube and whatever, but they have tablets and they have free time every day, and mostly my son's into Minecraft. That's like what he watches. But we've just been very cautious. And so when I saw this book, I was like, I need that book. I want to read that. My son's 10, my daughter's 8, and we already want to have a discussion about pornography and how to be safe. So I hope that helps somebody. That's all I have for today. If you're looking for a good parenting book, I highly recommend the How to Raise Kind Kids. The other book is great too, but like I said, it's a lot of the same information. This book kicked my tail in all the best ways, and I think every parent needs it. So let me know if you get it or what you think, or if you've heard of this author before. He has other books on the market, and I'm going to start snatching them up one by one. So have a good day, and happy homeschooling and parenting. Thanks for watching.